Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Earthly Headlines. Today we're going to talk about Israel, and that they've confirmed that there were Neanderthals who made repeated use of this ancient settlement called Ein Qashish, which is in northern Israel. And this is the cave or the site that they found them at. And the reason why this is important is because it was, again, repeatedly occupied. So up until now, they were thinking that, yeah, there were probably Neanderthals here, but they were just coming and going. They weren't making permanent settlements, let alone having like some sort of stable residence at this area. But apparently they did. And it's very important to understand that there are, in archaeology, there are two types of sites, I guess you could say. One is called an open air site, and one is a cave site, essentially. So the open air sites tend to be, again, the aforementioned non-permanent, just transitory sites, these people coming and going. There weren't signs of anybody in a typical open air site of staying there, let alone stuff that survives long enough in an open air site. In the Levant region of the Middle East, which again is here, the main source of information on Middle Paleolithic human occupation comes from cave sites, and then compared to open air settlement, sheltered sites like caves were easily recognized and often visited, and therefore are more likely to record long periods of occupation. So Ein Qashish is one such open air site, but it's been inhabited over an extended prehistoric time period. And they're looking at dates between 71,000 and 54,000 years ago. Again, the Neanderthals were supposedly extinct about 40,000 years ago or so. And so again, this is very interesting because there are stories of our Homo sapiens ancestors having two attempts at leaving Africa. So one attempt was thwarted. This is a hypothesis. Was thwarted by either a group of Neanderthals, because Neanderthals were occupying at the time, and then the second time, about 70,000 years ago or so, within this time range, where is it? Within this 71,000 year time range, they went through again, and then they were successful. So I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that indeed happened 100%. But that is one of the theories that I've heard in the past. So again, this is very intriguing that now they have confirmed a Neanderthal presence here, and not just in passing either. They were permanent residents there, at least at this cave site here in northern Israel. So they identified human skeletal remains as Neanderthals and observed more than 12,000 artifacts from 4 different depositional units in the same location on the landscape. So these units obviously represent different instances of occupation during the changing environmental conditions. So that's another thing to keep in mind, was the climate was also changing. And also around this time, Mount Toba exploded. So that had global effects in terms of climate, and a ton of Homo sapiens died in it as well. So who knows how that figures into northern Israel. But it must have affected the environment in some capacity, even though Israel's pretty far away from Mount Toba. Mount Toba, again, was a supervolcano that exploded in Indonesia. So authors infer that the occupants were knapping tools, provisioning resources, and consuming animals on site. So another thing about open air settlements are they're, again, short-lived and chosen for specialized tasks, kind of like a small encampment, I guess. But Ein Qashish appears to be the site of repeated occupations, each of which hosted a range of general activities. So a stable and consistent settlement system is among these. So if the Neanderthals were utilizing some sort of advanced system of settlement, then again, that's breakthrough news there. The author suggests that within a complex system, settlement system, open air sites may have been more important for prehistoric humans than previously thought. So again, these open air sites were not thought of as they were important, but they weren't thought of as important as cave sites or closed sites. Is a Ein Qashish is a 70 to 60,000 year old open air site with a series of stratified human occupations in a dynamic floodplain environment. The site stands out in the extensive excavated area and some unique finds for an open air context from which we deduce the diversity of human activities on the landscape. Very interesting. In contrast to other known open air sites, the locality was not used for task-specific activities, but rather served in time and again as a habitation location. So Neanderthals weren't dumb, guys. They definitely weren't dumb. They knew what they were doing. They knew that Israel was special enough to have an encampment and or a settlement rather, and try to live their life there. Now, if they held this, if Neanderthals almost within the same genus, but what also in many ways different from us, even they saw the importance of this land here. So that leaves me wondering, well, when our ancestors went in, why did they think it was sacred unless they were passing through and then they got wind that it was sacred by the Neanderthals, and then hence this war or something, this conflict happens. Again, that's very interesting stuff. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but I mean, some of those theories are out there, and it wouldn't surprise me, especially if we started it, the Homo sapiens, because you know, we tend to do that type of stuff. Not to say that Neanderthals are peace loving. I don't know what they're like, but still, it just seems very interesting that open air sites are known for Neanderthals to just be temporary, yet they find one in a place like Israel, and it's a permanent encamp, or it's a permanent settlement. The stratigraphy dates and finds from the site allow a reconstruction of a robust settlement system of the late Neanderthals in northern Israel slightly before this disappearance from the regional record. So this raises questions about the reasons for their disappearance and about their interactions with modern humans. So again, that's they're alluding to that theory there. And then this is the abstract of the article here, this PLOS1 article. So the area of the site is estimated to be between over 1,300 square meters, of which only 670 were excavated. So there's a lot more to go in terms of excavation. The site is located at the confluence of the Kishon stream with a small tributary running off the eastern flanks of Mount Carmel. So the water channels and alluvial deposits created a dynamic depositional environment. So again, they are living near these rivers here, and for good reason, obviously, if you want a permanent settlement. So they find diverse material cultural remains from the site. So they find lithics, refitted sequences, limestone pieces, mollusks, faunal remains, and then they compare them against their paleogeographic backdrop, which is of course changing. And then skeletal evidence suggests that these remains were associated with Neanderthals, of course. And again, each occupation of these sites was of ephemeral nature, yet this one presents a range of activities suggesting that the locale has been used as a generalized residential site rather than a specialized task-specific one. So people were living here like in a neighborhood. Ein Qashish did not change through time, suggesting that during the late Middle Paleolithic settlement system in this part of the southern Levant were stable. So again, this is a weird snapshot, but it is a snapshot in history that there were between 70,000 to 50,000 years ago Neanderthals living here permanently. So what does that mean to you guys? Let me know in the comments. I think this is a really interesting find, and I think it's very promising, and we are getting closer to this prehistoric, what was going on in prehistory, and what the demographics were, not just of Homo sapiens, but other members of the genus Homo as well. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later, and let me know in the comments what you guys think.